HomeSide Chats. This is Andrea French, Executive Director for TAG, Transportation Advocacy Group. In today's episode, we're joined by Mayor Pro Tem Dave Martin and also representative for City of Houston Council District E. Welcome.
Thanks, Andrea. Good to be here.
And so we know that you are exceptionally busy these days, as we all are in our own new normal days that we're having. And so I just wanted to hear a little bit about some of the experiences that you're having and what your days look like now.
Yeah, well, that's a great question. It's changed a lot over the past couple of weeks since COVID-19 showed its ugly, reared its ugly head. But a lot of the things we're doing now is we have meetings every morning with folks from the medical center, because the number one objective we had once we realized that we had a pandemic situation and we had to shut down the rodeo on March 11th, was to protect the medical center, to protect the healthcare system and make sure that we didn't have the situation that happened in New York. And that was a run on the hospitals, ICU explosion, lack of PPEs, lack of facilities to really treat people. So we wanted to make sure that we did everything with that number one objective, and that is to protect the medical center, which is the greatest part of the city of Houston, in my opinion, and it's shown through over the last couple of weeks, that's for sure. So our day starts with a call to them to make sure that their occupancy rate, especially in ICUs, is manageable. And if it's not, what type of alternative positions do we take, and what do we start doing from that point forward? So it's, and then it leads into an executive administration team meeting with the mayor and all his directors. And then every day we typically will close with a press conference around 3 o'clock,
Right.
a wrap-up meeting to see how we prepare for the next day. So pretty much 80% of what we're doing is related to the coronavirus and how we protect our citizens and do the right things. And I think our cases will show that we took a lot of good proactive steps and they seem to be working, knock on wood.
Right, yeah, and I think, certainly had conversations about that day that the rodeo closed down. It was such a significant moment and so symbolic for Houston. Really one of our hallmark annual events, and nobody will forget that day. And that marked a huge change, an imprint on people's minds for a shift in a reality of the conversation that maybe we were just hearing about from other places, but it had not really hit us yet. And so, at the time there was a lot of angst over the closure of the rodeo, but now we look back and we say, oh my goodness, how could we not made that call?
Sure. The interesting thing is, if you can't tell by my goofy accent, I'm a native of New Orleans.
Right.
And my family is in New Orleans, so we talk each and every day, and you compare what's happening here and then compare what's happening in New Orleans, and it's night and day. And I think it was a point, what they did was they kept Mardi Gras going. And we did, and we'll always remember March 11th. It'll stick in my mind forever, because at noon we made a decision to shut it down, and people were out at the rodeo having a good time and not knowing what the heck we were doing. We sacrificed a great deal of revenue on the sales tax side, which is going to haunt us come July 1, which is our new fiscal year. And over at my hometown to the east of us, and they Mardi Gras going, and they got a lot of good revenue in, but man, they're sure paying for it. They had, I think the statistic was 1,500 deaths that they've already had in the state of Louisiana. And we're in around 30 some odd right now. And every single death, while you hate to lose a single person, every single death we've had from coronavirus is that have had underlying conditions. And all but one were over the age of 60. So we knew that was going to be the vulnerable citizens group, and we did everything to protect them. But unfortunately, we've had a number of folks that just succumbed to it, but they all had underlying conditions.
Right, and I think that's really what people are trying to follow, and that's the helpful feedback, is studies showing who's most impacted, and it's kind of been across the board, but you're absolutely right. The regions and the cities and the municipalities that have chosen to take the more restrictive approaches, to some of the stay-at-home orders are the ones that are seeing, kind of the lesser amount of cases. And
yeah, I mean, compare us to Harris County to Galveston County. Galveston County is having some significant issues right now. And if you remember, we did our stay home, work safe order and challenged our folks to practice social distancing. And they still had bars and restaurants open for 6 days after we issued our order. And I think they're reaping what they sowed. And that was, let's go ahead and protect the bars and the restaurants and the revenue coming in. And unfortunately, they're dealing with a situation that's out of control.
Right. And can you talk a little bit about that? Kind of segues to the conversations that are circling right now, right? Where we're already now having these, to disagree or agree, we're having these conversations about reopening, and it is all over the place is what people are hearing. And, you've got state conversations, you've got county, you've got municipality. And so can you share a little bit about what your viewpoint of that is right now when we talk about the reopening?
Yeah, so my viewpoint, I take it from two angles. The mayor pro tem of the city of Houston, and looking at the economy, and especially the oil industry that has been decimated, and the negative effect that's going to have on our sales tax revenue and our general fund, which we need to prepare for, because our fiscal year 2021 starts July 1st and runs through June of 2021 next year. So we're preparing our budget as we speak. The other perspective I have is my wife and I have our oldest son who is a medical doctor working in, I call it Coronaville Central, and that's Ben Taub Hospital in the medical center. And the perspective that we get from visiting with him every day. And he and his wife have quarantined themselves from us because they know that probably they're a asymptomatic carrier, and they don't affect us or their in-laws as well. But I think you're going to see next week that Governor Abbott is going to take a stance and move towards opening up certain segments. So let's talk about restaurants. I think you'll see restaurants beginning to open up, but I think you'll see restaurants with social distancing. We will require them to move from an occupancy rate to 50% of that occupancy rate, and to move tables away from each other. I don't know how you work with people that, like if you and I wanted to go have lunch, I'm not sure if that's appropriate at this point in time. But if a family member and families want to do it and want to go grab a bite to eat, and they can social distance from other people, I think we're probably going to move towards something along those lines. So I think you're going to see some movement next week to slowly but safely open up the economy. And I think those are the key things, is that we have to rely on the advice we get. We're really fortunate that we live in Houston, because the medical center over these last couple of weeks, I've gained a even stronger appreciation from the folks in the medical center and how they guide and direct us. And I think the reason why we're in shape we are is because we listen to the doctors. We listen to the advice that we got from our folks in the medical center. And I think that we still need to do that while trying as hard as we can to get this economy back going again. So it's going to be a tough juggling act, but I think it's one that we're up to, and I think we'll do a good job with it.
Yeah, I know. And I think it is hard to kind of sift through a lot of the information, because you are hearing different things. And I did, in some of my other conversations, the recommendation has been to listen to your local leaders. Couldn't be more critical right now, because they are the ones that understand what's truly happening in your particular region, versus, a state where we have, over 200 counties. What's happening in rural parts of the state is not what's happening here. And so you really have to look at your local leaders and what they're recommending, and follow those guidelines.
Sure. And I think that, Galveston County is quite different today than Harris County. So while you open up in Harris County, maybe you don't open up in Galveston County, because they're a couple of weeks behind us.
Right.
And Houston's fared out a lot better than Dallas had. So maybe you do things a little bit differently. But I think that's where the communication needs to happen between the state leaders and the local leaders, and making sure they're all together and all on board with the new direction that we're going to have. And that is to open up the economy, but really rely on the data and really rely on the advice of the experts. And I'm an accountant by trade. I'm not an expert in physiology, and I'm not an expert in anything that relates to this. So I rely on the doctors in the medical center to tell us and direct us as to where we need to go and how we open up this economy, because we really need to open it up, but we need to open it up in the proper way.
Right. And so talking about the budget and those conversations that you're having,
Mhm.
can you share how, the pandemic is framing those conversations? Are you looking at investing in things that are, is it more kind of service based, or is it job stimulation based investments that you're looking at for the budget? And how is that framing those conversations?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's the $170 million question, because that's what it looks like our budget shortfall is going to look like. We're going to have furloughs, but we're limited by city charter that we cannot furlough an employee any more than 10 days. So when we do the furloughs, you'll probably see it 10 days, and people may ask, why 10 days? Well, that's the maximum furlough package that we can do. On the 27th of March, the president signed the CARES Act, and the stands for Coronavirus Aid, Relief and Economic Security and Stimulus Act. So that was all about revenue replacement. You had revenue replacement for the airlines to support their payroll. You had revenue replacement to bars and restaurants to support their payroll and keep them in business. Revenue replacement for hotels and motels because of the lost revenue they have for people not traveling.
Right.
To small businesses. My daughter received her $1,200 check last week, so she was all happy about that. So you had revenue replacement for people. However, there was no revenue replacement for municipalities. So part of the CARES package was the state of Texas received $11.2 billion. That's billion with a B.
Right.
Population. Based on the city of Houston's population, we received $404 million. By the way, we got that $404 million deposited into the bank on Tuesday. So we have $404 million. However, that $404 million is for expenses incurred due to the coronavirus. Purchasing of PPEs, masks, gloves, gowns, shields, etc. Replacing costs that we incurred to, for instance, Harris County, not the city of Houston, decided to build a portable hospital building in NRG parking lot. So the opportunity, that was a $60 million expenditure to get the expense replacement for that. But for us, knock on wood, we haven't had a lot of expenses because we sacrificed revenue on 11th to protect lives. And I'll compare and contrast to our folks to the east of us in New Orleans, where they didn't sacrifice revenue. They wanted it, and in lieu of the deaths that they're now seeing over there. So for us, we wanted to protect our citizens, not to say they didn't, but we shut things down. That's why we're facing such a significant budget shortfall, is because about 30% of our revenue base comes from sales tax. No one's spending money, no one's traveling. We get a lot of, we're proud to be the energy capital of the world. Well, that's not a good thing today. We wish we were a little bit more diverse, because the downturn in the energy sector is crippling us. So we're having calls right now with our congressional delegation, including Senators Cornyn and Cruz, to see if they can help us with the CARES Act and having the ability to replace the revenue we lost. Because like they did for restaurants and bars, they didn't want their employees to go away. So they gave them money to keep their employees. We want that money for our employees, so we don't have to furlough our employees as well. So it was 100% in agreement. Every congressional delegation member from the city of Houston, including the state delegation from the national side, Cruz and Cornyn, all agreed with our position. And that is, there needs to be a little bit more flexibility in the use of the $404 million we received from the federal government. If we get that, it's a game changer for us, because then we're able to look at the budget a little bit differently and maybe keep a number of things that we're in desperate need of. And that's including police and fire and first responders. And we love first responders. They're doing a great job today. And We don't want to lose them. So it's going to be a slow moving process, but we hope to have the ability to use that money for some of our revenue replacement as well.
Well, and thank you for being a part of those conversations. Those are those kinds of things that are happening kind of behind the scenes, or outside of our homes, that we're not always connected to. And so I would ask too, do you feel there's a timeline for kind of where those conversations ultimately get resolved?
Yeah. So, CARES 1 was passed on the 27th of March. I think CARES 2 package is being looked at as we speak.
Right.
I'm sure if it passed the House and the Senate, but it will eventually pass the House and the Senate. I think they're going to have some money in there for municipalities. If you look at CARE 1, it was a perfect package for cities like New Orleans and New York and Chicago and Philadelphia, because they incurred a heck of a lot of expenses. So the monies that they lost on the expense side, the replacement's significant. But for cities like Houston that did a good job up front, and I will tell you, I think Mayor Turner has done a fabulous job.
Yes, he really has.
I think he's really been very thoughtful in what he's done. And I'm really pleased to be working with him every day on this initiative. And I applaud him. And I'm a Republican, he's a Democrat. So sometimes we can see in the United States what that looks like, and it isn't very pretty. But I'm here today telling you that I applaud him, and I think he's doing a phenomenal job. But that, we'll have the ability to move that within the next 7 to 10 days, we think. Because we need some answers, because our budget starts July 1, and we need to be ready to go. We'll approve it sometime in June, and then we'll be set for the next 12 months.
Okay, well, and I do wonder too, kind of future phases of these relief packages and what they're coming out. And obviously one of the big things is infrastructure too, right? So as we try to get some of these workers back, the jobs back, many of those positions are not coming back at all, or soon, right?
Yeah.
How do you translate skills into new jobs for people? And one of those industries, obviously infrastructure. And infrastructure, not just kind of the roads and the rails but the other T besides transportation, right? So technology.
Absolutely.
And I think they're saying that, in the past, the highway system has been part of that reboot to the economy, and it will continue to be transportation, but it will also be a lot of technology.
Yeah. I think you guys, your industry is in a great spot right now. I truly do. After we get out of this pandemic, and who knows when that will be, I think you are positioned very well to reap a lot of the rewards that we're going to need on the technology side. How do you prepare for the next one? This has taught us a lot, and related to technology. How do you start with the president's infrastructure initiative and dealing with transportation issues that we need to get going on? So I think the construction that we're going to see is going to be rapid. I think it's going to be funded very well. And I think there's going to be a heck of a lot of opportunity for people in your group, whether they're on the technology side or the transportation side. Infrastructure goes into many different areas. And we're well positioned for that, especially in the city of Houston, for making that happen. And I'm a little bit prejudiced because I mentioned my oldest is a doctor. My youngest is a civil engineer.
There we go.
And she's in your world each and every day. So selfishly, I want infrastructure and technology and transportation initiatives to move at a rapid pace. And I think the initiative and the momentum that we're going to build up for this is going to be tremendous. So I'm really bullish on the transportation and technology part of what we're trying to do in the infrastructure world. And you should be as well.
Thank you for that. And I think too, one of the things that we're focused on at TAG is a message and a campaign talking about how infrastructure has continued to move us through, even while we are kind of, stuck at home. Infrastructure that's moving goods, that's, moving supplies and things like that. And how can we say that Houston should be at the top of that list when that relief money and that stimulus money comes and different regions are chosen to kind of an investment? The argument to be made is that we do have such a variety of crown jewels, right, including the med center, our ports, and so that return on the dollar is much greater, like Houston.
Yeah, I mean, Rick Campo is doing a tremendous job at the port. You mentioned them. Uh, he's a visionary thinker, and I think the port's in great shape right now. And all the things that are related to the port activity, which is, have seen a massive slowdown. I think we need to prepare for that on the transportation side of it. We went to Washington, D.C. a couple of weeks ago and on the Begging for Money tour. And
Right.
with the congressional delegation, I think they're fully supportive of this. But my personal experience with watching people that are members of TAG, I'm sure your work group is working really hard right now because I see it in my own four walls of my house. My daughter starts at 7 in the morning, and at 6 o'clock when I'm ready to go run and do my exercise, I have to wait on her because she's not finished up her day.
Right.
The thing about my wife and I we went from an empty house and we were empty nesters. Now we have 2 of the 3 kids home. My daughter's an exercise nut, so she drags me with her, and we go running every day for about 5 miles. And it's been, I like to look at the good side of things. The coronavirus has brought that ability for us to do types of things and reconnect and spend a lot of time, good, valuable time with your loved ones. And
Right.
That's part of the process. But she's working her butt off, that's for sure.
Right, right. And so one of the things I like to ask people is what they've learned about themselves too, in kind of these moments, right? Each of us has had to pivot in our own way in our personal lives and our professional lives. And so I'm curious, I'm sure we're all learning a lot about each other and ourselves. So if there was anything in particular, that you learned about yourself.
Well, I learned that I need a haircut. Number one, I can't do so much with this, but I always look in my front window versus my rear view window, and retirement is not too far in my future.
Mm-hmm.
God, I don't know if I could stay at home and do nothing every day. I'd have to do something to keep me busy. So
Right.
I'm probably way too ADD to sit still every day, but
Right.
I've always been a father and a husband that's really got involved with my kids' life. I coached them when they were little, and did everything with the kids. I consider my kids my best friends, and to have 2 of the 3 back home with me, it's been really a treat. So I value each and every day because I know that somewhere over the next couple of weeks they're going to go back to their apartments and places to work, and it's going to be a different world. We're going to become empty nesters again. So it was a transition between having a full house and going to empty nesters and now having them back again. But I thoroughly enjoyed that part of it. So I am a very impatient man, that's for sure.
So I should interview your family and ask them what they've learned about. They knew that.
No, you don't want to do that. No.
Okay.
I've been watching a lot of sports at night. My middle son and we're binge watching Curb Your Enthusiasm. So
Okay.
that's what we do every night. We stay up till 1 o'clock binge watching Curb Your Enthusiasm. We started from the last season and we work back. I think we're on season 5, episode 3.
Okay.
So we've gone back every night and watched different things. Why? I have no idea.
There's a lot of levity in that show, so that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
And I think it's always something that's applicable to something in life that's going on with that show as well. So.
Oh yeah, it's an amazing. I think they're brilliant writers. That's for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I really just want to thank you for all of your service, your leadership. It is really been enjoyable to hear you really target in on some of the numbers. That it's very helpful, provides a fuller picture of what you're experiencing at the city level, and some of the decisions that you're having to make are related to the pandemic, but also related to in general.
Yep.
So
well, I appreciate the opportunity. I love TAG. I think you're a great group. I have a vested interest in it since my daughter's in the middle of your engineering world. And it's a great organization filled with very, really good people. And that's Jack Drake. That's my Jack Drake.
Appreciate the shout.
Jack, how you doing, Jack?
Thank you for your infusion of laughter too at times when these are challenging times, and so We appreciate that. And we hope to come back and talk with you as additional funds are,
Yeah.
fingers crossed, right? We made for municipalities.
Hmm.
Talk about kind of maybe the post-budget conversations and process and kind of where the city is. And, we'd love to revisit. And we will continue to um, be, your cheerleaders and talking with the congressional delegation about ways that they can continue to invest. So we look forward to partnering with you on this conversation.
Awesome. Awesome. We've had a great working relationship with all the congressional leaders from around the Harris County area. And we're really privileged and honored to have them all representing us in Washington because they're really doing a good job and they're really busy as well. So
Yeah.
we feel really good about our ability to have a good outcome for this, for the city, not only in the budget process, but also everything that we do. So.
Right. Well, thank you. That was HomeSide Chats. We hope you enjoyed the program. This series would not be possible without the support of our 2020 mobility partners. We thank you for your partnership. Stay tuned for more episodes of HomeSide Chats coming soon.